Blog Talk Radio.
Well, here we go, ladies and gentlemen, the show that keeps picking up steam. Last week was a big AT&T outage in the East and the Midwest, knocked us off for pretty much the whole week. So we're back to normal now, and thank God for that. This is the American Sports History Podcast coming from Cleveland, Ohio, hosted by a brother, a mentor, and a friend, Peter Ray, and I truly mean that. Yours truly, Mark Mancini in Los Angeles, where each and every week it feels like I live in Seattle and I'm looking for the Space Needle. Story for another day. 347-205-9631. Anything after that, 30 minutes goes by quick. Archive version, blogtalkradio.com/Mancini Sports. Podcast platforms, wherever you subscribe to Podcast Power Now by Mancini Media. So without further ado, more of him, less of me. Let me lay the red carpet down, put the podium in its place, hand off the mic. Peter the Threes, how are you? How can people get a hold of you? And you're bringing back a buddy that I've known for quite a while, too, and I'm just so blessed. Another brother, mentor, and friend. And I'll let you do the introductions of the man, the busy board.
Hi, Mark. I'm doing well. I have a YouTube channel. It's my name, Peter J. REA. You're absolutely right. Tonight's guest is back. He was on almost 4 years ago. He was a Major League Baseball middle reliever pitcher, mostly a middle reliever pitcher from 1977 to 1985 with the Philadelphia Phillies, Chicago White Sox, and Chicago Cubs. He had a record of 28-16, 3.51 ERA, 340 games, 273 strikeouts, 14 saves. He was on that memorable Phillies that won the World Series in 1980, ending a 97-year title drought. He's currently the pitching coach for Napa Valley College. His wife, Jennifer, is president and chief executive of the Tug McGraw Foundation. He was with the 84 Cubs who got to the NLCS, and the 83 White Sox, 82 White Sox, the next year they got to the ALCS, so on some very memorable teams. Welcome to the show again, Mr. Warren Brusstar.
Oh, thank you, Peter. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. I enjoy talking baseball.
Right. Well, I'm so glad to have you on again because I know last time I think I was going through the name. I love hearing about guys, memories of players, of their teammates and managers and coaches. So we'll start with, I'll give you one name at a time, the 77 Phillies, your first year. What do you remember about the GM, Paul Owens?
Well, he's the one that put that team together. He connected everybody and got everybody going and did a great job of bringing people in. We always made a big trade at the trading deadline the years that I was there. That always helped us get into the playoffs and won the 1 year in 1980 to win the World Series. So he was very instrumental in that ball club and setting that ball club up.
Okay, the manager, Danny Ozark.
Yes, he was. That was my first manager, and I love Danny. He was a great man. He was fun to be around, and he came from the Dodger system, so he knew baseball. They always talked about how good the Dodger system was, and he brought that into Philadelphia. And they each year from the early 70s, they went from last place to fifth place to third to second to first. Finally, I mean, each year take one step at a time. And Danny also, along with Paul Owens, was very instrumental in getting that team into the playoffs. We just couldn't, the years that he had us, we just couldn't get over the hump. 76, 77, 78, they really, we had a hard time in the playoffs. It's just, we got there, but just couldn't get it until 1980 when Dallas came in and changed the mindset of all the players. You know, he wanted to see everybody hustle and play hard. And he put posters around the room, around the locker room, we, not I. So we played as a team, and it took a while for the players to buy into his system, but it worked out for the best.
Okay, the coaching staff, Tony Taylor.
Oh, I love Tony. What a great man. I played one winter in Venezuela, and he was our first base coach in Philadelphia and also in Venezuela. And we went to the owner's house. He had a 14 square mile ranch, and he had a bunch of horses, and we were all having a big picnic and stuff, and here comes Tony riding up on a horse. And being at my age, Rawhide was a big show I loved to watch as a kid. And Tony reminded me of Clint Eastwood riding a horse and coming up. Oh, it was great. Tony was a great baseball man. Loved TT.
Okay, the players, Bob Boone.
Yeah, he was a great catcher. He was, the backbone of the team. He ran the team from behind home plate. So he was a great catcher. I loved throwing to him. He blocked everything. There was nothing got by him. And he knew how to call a game, so I didn't have to think. That's the last thing I wanted to do when I had the ball in my hand was start thinking. So he'd put fingers down, and I'd just ride right with what and he knew the game. I can remember one night we were in Pittsburgh, and Bill Robinson was hit. And he called timeout, ran to the mound, and says, Bill Robinson, when he has 2 strikes on it, bounce a slider right on top of home plate. He swings at it every time. Sure enough, he goes back behind the plate. I bounce the slider on home plate, and he swings and misses at it. So it was little things like that he knew, that would help you, guide you through a game.
Okay, Richie Hebner.
Oh, Hack man. He was what a hitter. He was fun to be around. He was quite a character. He was, from Boston. So he had a big, thick Boston accent, a grave digger in the off season. He was fun to be around. He and Bull, Greg Lazinski, were really good friends. They were very close. Ted
Sizemore.
Oh, Size? Yeah, I love Size. He was a spark plug. Yeah, he was our second baseman, and he made a lot of things happen. He could do things, he could hit and run, he could bunt, he could do things, old school. He was the old school type, and he started out as a catcher, and they turned him into a second baseman. He said they took a belt and tied it around his arms, and so he had to learn how to throw sidearm, throwing the ball, and being able to turn a double play.
Larry Boa.
Now, he kept everything interesting. He stirred the pot. He kept guys fired up, and he always had something to say. He was very instrumental. He was the backbone of that Philly organization. And again, I played with him in Chicago with the Cubs, and he was fun to play with. And I was sitting around the house one time with my oldest son, and we were talking baseball, and I said, I got one of my baseball cards. I don't think I gave up on until and I looked on there, and it was my 4th year in the big leagues before I gave up an unearned run in my career. That's how good our defense was. And Boa made 6-7 errors a year. He didn't make an error. He'd make an error the first play every year. First play of the year, he'd make an error, and he wouldn't make it one year. He didn't make another one until July. He was a phenomenal defensive player, and then learned how to hit. When he first came up, he could knock the bat out of his hands. And then he got stronger and learned how to hit. And had one year where he did hit over 300. So he was a great player, fun player, fun teammate, great teammate.
Yeah, he became a manager.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was a little bit. He had a hard time relating with people because he got kicked out of games constantly. He'd always say the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Okay, Mike Schmidt.
Yeah, he was. Well, obviously a Hall of Famer, probably the greatest third baseman. It's Brooks Robinson and Mike Schmidt, two best third basemen ever in baseball. And we were in St. Pete my rookie year, and it was a bunt situation, and Lou Brock was on first base. And he came to the mound and said, this guy's going to bunt the ball. Just throw it up there, let him bunt it, and then get out of the way. Okay, I throw the pitch, and the ball's now by my feet, and he comes out of nowhere, gets the ball, turns and does like a 180 back to second base and throws Brock out before he goes into his slide. And I just said, I will never touch a bunt the rest of my career. I'll just stay out of his. And that's what he told me, just stay out of my way. And that's what all our defensive players did. They said, stay out of the way. Don't reach for balls. Just get out of the way. We'll handle the defense.
Greg Luzinski.
Yeah, he hit more mammoth home runs in Philadelphia than anybody that ever played the game. In fact, he hit one game in Houston. He almost hit the back wall of the Astrodome, which was, if you were ever in the Astrodome, that was an absolute blast. He hit mammoth home runs. They were long, launched balls up in the air, and they just kept going. They looked like golf shots. They'd go up, level out, and then just keep going. It was amazing how far he could hit a ball.
Gary Maddox,
the Secretary of Defense, and I believe it was Harry Callis that coined the phrase, 90% of the earth is covered in water, and Gary Maddox covers the other 10%. He and Bake McBride covered the entire outfield. They said, "Bull, you take the balls towards the left field line and stay out of our way from left center over." They ran balls down like crazy.
Jay Johnstone.
One of the craziest guys I've ever played with. He was what a nut. He was funny. He was always doing something. He was always up to something. And I can remember one day he was hitting, and we had these patent leather shoes that had shine on them. Well, the field, the dirt in Philadelphia in the sliding areas and at home plate would get real dry, and it'd get like a powder on it. And he had powder on his shoes. He called timeout, came to the dugout, got a towel and cleaned his shoes off, and then went back up and hit. I said, "What are you doing, Jay? Call timeout to clean your shoes." Yeah, I mean, he was a real nut. He was always up to something.
Bake McBride.
Great. When we got him in '77 at the trading deadline, that turned our offense around because he steal bases. He hit 320, could hit with power, hit doubles, hit 25 doubles probably, and hit 15 home runs in just the 3.5 months he was with us. It really opened up our offense, and he was on constantly in front of Schmidt and Lazinski, so there was always somebody on base when they came to hit.
Yeah, I've been a Cleveland Indians, now Guardians fan since '73, and didn't back in the '70s. The Indians weren't very good, but we had Bake McBride in the early '80s,
right.
And I was I was real happy whenever we got a guy from a great team, and we did have. So to be connected to those great Philadelphia Phillies teams, we had Bake McBride in Cleveland, so that was cool.
Right. Yeah, Cleveland always had good pitching, but they just couldn't ever put it together to win. It was amazing.
Tim McCarver.
Oh, I love Timmy. What a great guy he was. He was a super individual. He and Steve Carlton kind of took me under their wing when I first got up to the big leagues because I didn't have a place to stay, and we were all staying in a hotel, so they gave me a ride to the ballpark every day. We'd go out, have lunch, and then go to the ballpark afterwards. And he was fun to throw to. He could, he was another great catcher, the only catcher. I guess there's another one now, but he played in 4 decades, and it was amazing what type of career he had. And great hitter, great left-handed hitter. So he was very, very instrumental in those teams winning. If he wasn't catching, then we always had a left-handed hitter to the bench to hit, so because he was a great hitter. And he caught every 5th day. He caught lefty every 5th day, so he stayed sharp as far as his hitting was concerned.
Did he ever talk about his time with the Cardinals in the '60s?
Oh yeah, yeah. He a great story. I can't remember who the manager was. It was Red Schoendienst, Keene, one of the managers of the Cardinals in the '60s. He motioned to Tim to go out and talk to Bob Gibson. He goes out there, and Gibson says, "What are you doing out here?" He says, the only thing you know about pitching is you can't hit it, so go back there behind the plate." And he didn't exactly say it in that type of words, but you get the idea of what I'm saying.
Oh, that's a great story. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was with us we had a reunion in just last year in 2023, and Tim was still alive at the time, and so it was good to see him, before he passed away.
Davy Johnson.
Oh, there's another character. Great hitter. Yeah, I mean, he was, not only did we have good everyday players, but we had superstars coming off the bench. He was a great home run hitter when he played in Atlanta, and he came to Philly and did phenomenal. I mean, he backed up. He could play anywhere in the infield, and he had a great bat. So he was very instrumental in us winning, because we were a very offensive team, and he was fun to play with. He was quite a character.
Yeah, he had a real pass with Atlanta and Baltimore. And were you surprised when he managed the Mets to the '86 title?
Oh, no, not at all. He knew the game. He and Timmy, they would talk baseball. It was fun just to sit there and listen to them go back and forth about baseball. It was, two guys that really knew the game and, had a world of experience. Yeah,
Davy Johnson really had a past and a future when in '77. Okay, Ollie Brown.
Oh, downtown. Yeah, downtown Brown. There's another guy that, was a phenomenal Giants phenom coming up. And so we had another guy, a fourth outfielder that would come off the bench that could hit. He could steal bases. He hit with power. We were very offensive. We hit a lot of home runs. And he was another guy that got a chance to help us off the bench and did a great job. He was fun to play with. Very quiet, but he was a great player.
Barry Foote.
Yeah, Barry, he was, what a catcher he was. He was great big guy, just strong as an ox, and just they brought him in case Bob Boone was going to leave as a free agent. So they brought him in, and then he was instrumental in a trade to the Cubs to bring Manny Trio over. And that kind of solidified our infield because size was getting up in age. So we got Trio, and that solidified that 80 team and made not only our offense go more, but gave us better defense in the infield.
Dane Org.
Great hitter, great left-handed hitter. He was a young guy coming off the bench, had a great career. Was a great left-handed hitter, had a lot more success in Kansas City and St. Louis, but started out in Philadelphia and got his feet wet there, and then they moved him along to get Bake McBride, that was very instrumental in the '77 team. Bobby Tolan. Yeah, BT Express. He was at the end of his career, and he tore his Achilles, so he had a hard time coming back off of it, and he bounced around for a few years. But by the time he got to us in Philadelphia, he was back to being healthy, and he could run, he could fly. So we had somebody, we had a guy that could pinch run, he could hit, he could back up in the outfield. So we had a lot of players that were very versatile, not only great players but very versatile. So we could do a lot of things. Yeah, Bobby Tolan was a cool player from the Reds, right? Early '70s, and really one of my favorite players from Bobby Tolan, tremendous player. Okay, now the pitching staff: Steve Carlton. Yeah, what can you say about Lefty? He was, a Hall of Famer, and was. He and Nolan Ryan one year were going back and forth with our strikeout leadership. Ended up with over 4,000 strikeouts, and just an amazing, unbelievable how the kind of physical condition he was in. Just amazing. He worked with Gus Heflin. Gus was our stretching and flexibility coach. And we had to, when I first got there, we had to run 3 times around the complex in the morning or do Lefty's program with Gus. And you couldn't do Lefty's program with Gus. It was much easier just to run a couple miles than it was to work out with them. Gus would put you on the ground in 20 minutes where he couldn't get up. It was amazing what shape Lefty was in, and not only physical shape, but the mental shape and the mental part of the game. We were in Chicago one day, and Kevin Saucier was a young reliever, and he went to Lefty, and how do you throw your slider? And Lefty's typical answer was you hold it like this and throw the poop out of it. And so about 5 minutes later, he comes back and he says, now he starts talking about elbow angle. He says, the higher you get your elbow up, the more downward break you're going to get. The fuller your elbow, the flatter the break. And that was something I go, oh my God, that I put in my memory bank forever, because now the count dictated what type of slider I would throw. And it made pitching so much easier. Just, little insights that Lefty would have, he'd throw them out every once in a while. And if you asked him for something, he'd give you the shirt off his back. Just a great teammate and, great guy to play with.
Yeah, we had him in Cleveland in '87, and I thought, wow, we got Steve Carlton.
Right.
At the end of his career, it was cool. Again, the same thing like Bake McBride. It was cool having Steve Carlton in Cleveland for that part of a year. Larry Christensen.
LC, yeah, he had as good a stuff as any young pitcher I've ever seen. He had so many physical problems. He'd pull a groin muscle. He had elbow problems. He had shoulder problems. If he could have been healthy, he could have been a superstar. He would have been another Hall of Famer. He just had a hard time staying healthy. We did a bike trip. Tug McGraw set up these bike trips, and we did one on the West Coast. And we were going through Yuba City, and LC's bike tire got stuck in a railroad track, and he flipped over and broke his collarbone. There was always something always was happening to LC. But when he was healthy, he was as good as anybody. He and Lefty were the 1-2 punch of that pitching staff.
Randy Lurch.
Randy was, the problem Randy had was they compared him to Steve Carlton because they were built the same. And he had an arm like Lefty, but he didn't have the stuff that Lefty had because nobody did, And that I think that hurt Randy. He got up when he was very young. He was 22, 23 years old when he got to the big leagues, very young, and let a lot of things bother him, and that was, I think that hurt his career. He, instead of just going out and believing in himself and trusting his stuff, he'd start thinking about it, and then and I'd tell him constantly that's the last thing you can do. Just use your stuff. A great hitter. He hit more home runs than probably any pitcher ever played. If he'd have played long enough, he would have set all sorts of home run records as a pitcher. He hit 2 one day that 78 against the Pirates, the game we clinched the division. He started the game and hit 2 home runs in the game to help us win that game and win the division.
Have you read his book, God in the Bullpen?
I've read part of it. Yeah, in fact, I think I did read the whole book, and it was fun reading it because he was, as you come up through the minor leagues, he was a year ahead of me. So he was always one step ahead of me, and all the players that he played with are all people that I was very familiar with. I saw him in spring training and got to know those guys, and it was great to read his book and read back on all these names that I remembered. And all these guys I remembered coming up through the minor leagues.
Have you stayed in touch with him?
I've talked to him a few times, yeah. Mm-hmm. We've gone out and played golf a few times, and we've done podcasts together for Mark and for Todd Corder. So we've stayed in touch with each other.
How's he doing?
He's doing good. He's very happy. He lives up in the hills. Up in the Sierra Nevadas, and very happy. He's doing real well. He's healthy and having a good retirement.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. You read his book. It's so heartbreaking what he went through. I'm so glad he's okay now. This poor guy really went through a nightmare. Okay, Jim Cott.
Oh, Kitty Cott. He was great teammate. I love playing with Kitty and watching him pitch because he quick pitched everybody, and it was amazing what he could do, and he would quick pitch people And the umpires they would call timeout, and the hitters didn't know whether to step in, step out. They didn't know what to do when he was on the mound because he worked so quick. He and Randy Jones pitched a game, I think, in San Diego, and Johnny Oates, our bullpen catcher, said that the game was over before it got dark. They pitched like an hour and 28 minutes, something ridiculous. And he was amazing how fast he worked. And I learned a changeup in '83. And he was with St. Louis at the time. And I said, Kitty, you got to see this changeup I've been throwing. It's unbelievable. I showed him how to grip it. Later that night, he comes into the game, and he strikes Ron Say out with it. I'm going, oh, man, what are you doing? I teach you something, and you use it against us.
Did he ever talk about pitching for the Twins in the 60s, going to the World Series, playing with Mudcat Grant and all those guys?
Right, in a cold Minnesota. Yeah, windy and cold, he said. He always talked about, but he said he always used that to his advantage, which he used everything to his advantage. He was well, there's an old adage in baseball, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. And he tried very hard. He was a very unique individual.
Jim Lonborg.
Oh, he was my rookie year. Like I said before, we used to have to run 3 times around the complex in the morning as our morning running routine. And Jim took me under his wing and said, every day you're coming with me and we're going to run. So we would run the first 2 laps around. And then he'd say, okay, 3rd lap, I'm going to go for it. So he'd almost lap me. I'd go and he'd be half a lap ahead or half a complex ahead of me by the time he finished. He was amazing. He was a greyhound. He could really run, and he was really, gentleman Jim. He was just a outstanding person. Great man. Just loved playing with him. The couple of years I did get to play with him, and just a wonderful human being. Great father. Great family man, had 6 or 7 kids, and just set his wife up out on Atlantic City, and drove from Atlantic City to Philadelphia every day to the ballpark, just to have his family, so his wife could be on the shore and have kids so they could be at the beach every day.
Yeah, he was on the '67 Impossible Dream Red Sox.
Right. Yeah, there was a thing because he blew his knee out skiing. That became stuff that they started putting in the basic agreement or the basic contracts for all the players. You couldn't do this, you couldn't do that during the off season.
Okay, Gene Garber.
Oh, Gino. Well, loved watching Gino pitch. He was very unique. Great changeup. He knew how to change speeds. He really knew how to pitch. Had a great career, just a phenomenal career. And again, at the reunion a few years ago, I got a chance to see him. I hadn't seen him in 40, 35 years. So it was great to see him again. And he was just, he and Ron Reed in the bullpen took me under their wing my rookie year, and taught me how to warm up and how to do this and do that and the little things so you don't burn yourself out and leave your stuff in the bullpen. They'd help me so I'd be sharp when I got to the mound.
Okay, Ron Reed.
Yeah, he was like a father to me. He took me under his wing, and just showed me the ropes. Really taught me a lot about the game and how to prepare yourself to pitch on a daily basis, because it's something that I had never done before. I'd never pitched out of the bullpen, and so you had to be ready every day. So there's a way to prepare so you don't burn yourself out. And he always, gave me little hints and little tidbits here and there, and it's a fraternity. Pitching's a real fraternity, and guys, as they came up and they were taught, they teach you give back what you learned coming up through the minor leagues and the big leagues.
Our guest has been Warren Brusstar, a Major League Baseball pitcher from 1977 to 1985 with the Philadelphia Phillies, Chicago White Sox, and Chicago Cubs. The time has flown by, Mr. Brusstar. Do you have any final words tonight for our audience?
Well, not but anything, but thank you very much for having me, Peter. I enjoy it. It's fun to sit back and reflect on all my old teammates in Philadelphia, and what great teams we had, and how much fun it was to play in Philadelphia and to play with the players that I played with.
Well, I just love talking to guys like you and hearing because these, that your teammates, are memorable, and you're a fan. When you're a fan, you know that what you have baseball cards, and you know what the guys look like. You know what their stats are, but you're kind of curious about the guys, and teammates are the ones who know them. Much better than the fans. So I love hearing stories from players about their teammates. So we didn't quite get through your first year. I'll contact you again to have you on. I just love hearing. This is just a wonderful, wonderful show tonight. I just love hearing everything you had to say.
Thank you very much, Peter. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed every minute of it.
Oh wow! Thank you so much. I'll contact you again, and I thank you. I'll do that. Thank you so much. Wonderful. What a gift. Next week we do not have a show. In 2 weeks we're going to have Matthew DiBiase talking NFL history. Jim Lee Howe won to coach the New York Giants to a title in 1956, and Tom Flores, who won a couple coaching the Oakland and L.A. Raiders in 1980 and 1983. And in 2 weeks we'll have. And then we'll have Bill North the week after that. So, dear listener, may the road rise to meet you. May the wind be at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face and rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, may God hold you in the palm of his hand. Good night, everybody. Thanks again so much, Mr. Warren Brusstar.
Thank you, Peter. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Hey guys, it is Ryan. I'm not sure if you know this about me, but I'm a bit of a fun fanatic when I can. I like to work, but I like fun too. It's a thing. And now the truth is out there. I can tell you about my favorite place to have fun. Chumba Casino. They have hundreds of social casino style games to choose from with new games released each week. You can play for free anytime, anywhere. And each day brings a new chance to collect daily bonuses. So join me in the fun. Sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.